Welcome to Showdown. I'm Mark Kasen, and it is Thursday, and that is the 22nd of May. And here we are. And welcome to Showdown. I'm Mark Kasen, and it is Thursday. That's a little problem. That's all right. Hang on. If I can find it. Okay, solve that problem. Okay, sorry about all that. Live television, uh, always a mess, but hey, here we are. So it is the 22nd of May, and next week is the holiday on Monday. So once again, we will do the program on Tuesday at 4 o'clock, but that's okay because one by one we're knocking down problems, and here we go. So, one of the things about today, um, you can always count on our dear president, our dear leader, to to take us in places where we've never been before. So, for example, we passed a bill in the House of Representatives. Now, it's not completed yet, so it's going to get bounced around in the Senate, and so we'll see how that ends up. But the one thing that we know about it is that if it ended up the way it is today, 14 million people would lose their health insurance in the United States instantly. So yeah, that's why I say you can count on dear leader to do things in a way that's never been done before. It used to be that when we did something to help people, then we were all excited and said, gee, look what we did. We found ways to protect so many millions of people and add people to the healthcare rolls and so forth. But now it's the reverse. What can we do to hurt people? The more that we can do to hurt people, the more that I guess Donald goes to bed happy. So it looks like he'll go to bed happy tonight because he's at least got the prospect of wiping out 14 million people's health care in the United States. And the way he's going to do it is by cutting Medicaid by $800 million over the next 10 years. I know what these people think they're doing. And I'm talking now about the people in the House of Representatives, in the Republicans in the Senate, some of the people that for years have thought about, what can we do to reduce the costs of government? They're hoping that somehow they can cut back the expenses and that we would somehow become fiscally responsible. Well, not this way. Not this way, guys, because what we've got is a disaster looming economically for this country. On one hand, there's a clear indication from the scorecard that comes from the government people who add these things up. They say that we're looking at an increase of about $20 trillion worth of debt over the next 10 years. That's incredible. And while I would say, okay, I could go for that in a sense. I mean, I would not mind increasing our debt by a substantial amount. The problem is they're not doing this in a way that would be aimed at trying to do something positive for the country. I mean, it's not like we'd be building a giant high-speed rail system, which in fact would cost trillions of dollars, but would be well worth it in that it would create this unbelievable system of transportation for the United States, rivaling what we see today in both Europe and Japan. Now, if you did something like that, we'd have something to talk about. No, what they're talking about doing is stuffing dollar bills into the pockets of people like Elon Musk, Donald Trump, who's never had he's never had a nickel in his life. I mean, this man has been broke his entire life. He's got a company out here, the Trump something or other. I know what it is. I'm not going to say the name. I just don't like saying it because it's not a real company. But that company, DJT, is selling on the market for about $24 a share, and that gives him about $2.75 billion that he actually owns of that company. Now, he also has debts on his real estate that might be in the range of $2 to $3 or $4 billion, which would put him in the negative. Now, I understand Donald has a way of stealing money from people that he can put in his pocket so that when he wants to go to lunch, he'll have money for lunch. So that's good. He's got lunch money. But on the other hand, what he's really trying to do, for example, is he's trying to sell these meme coins. And he has sold, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of these meme coins. The problem is he's going to have to jack up his net worth a whole lot more in order to overcome what he owes on his real estate debacle, which, he's had, so many different kinds of debacles over his lifetime. I'm sure it doesn't mean much to him one way or the other, except, again, like I say, he's got lunch money. So that's a plus for him. He knows he won't starve. And basically, if you look at the man and you add up what he probably weighs, people have said, he likes to say it that way, people have said that he may be the most overweight president in the history of the United States, obviously competing with William Howard Taft 100 years ago. So we'll see how all that works out for Donald. But essentially, he's a man with many problems. Let's not forget, he owes the state of New York $500 million. And then another $100 million to because he decided to rape a woman. I mean, why he wanted to get himself into that problem, I don't know. But as we've discussed before, E. Jean Carroll sued him the first time, and she got $5 million because he defamed her by lying, or by lying about her. He said that she was a liar, and then he had to pay $5 million for that. Well, then when he continued to bother this lady, well, E. Jean Carroll sued him again, and the result of that was $100 million if you include the interest into it. So essentially what has happened here is that, Donald owes a lot of money. He has stolen a lot of money. And let's not forget, I mean, if we're going to add some money to his net worth, let's throw in the $400 million that he stole from the United States government, having to do with this airplane that he got from Qatar. And again, he stole the money. I mean, there's no question about that. He says that this airplane was given to the United States government, but we all know that the airplane was, in fact, loaned to the United States government, and it will revert to the Trump library after he's out of the White House. Now, I know in one sense, I guess he thinks he may never be out of the White House. But I think there are some of us out here who believe that he'll be gone sooner rather than later. I know I heard Carville 2 nights ago. He was saying on MSNBC somewhat the same thing he said before, that Donald's running out of highway here. I mean, he thinks that he's got this open highway in front of him that, could last the rest of his lifetime. But the reality is that, well, he's 79 years old. He's dramatically, obesely overweight. His doctors say he's in the best health of anybody else on the planet, that he could live for eternity. But, that's just, Donald Trump lies, so we understand how that works. I just think it's important to understand that, when he holds himself out here as this person who is somehow, a business genius, he makes the country run so fantastically. I guess in a way he may be, in his own mind, comparing himself to Mussolini, who was able to make the trains run on time, and so maybe he somehow envisions himself in that kind of a way. But again, this is a man who has failed in every business venture of his lifetime, and he is putting the United States very close to achieving the kinds of levels of success that we saw for his casinos, which ended up in bankruptcy, his Thai company, his steak company, his, everything that he sold. I mean, all those things, the university, I mean, they all went out of business in serious trouble. The man filed bankruptcy, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 6 times. I'm not sure what the real number is. He says that proves how smart he is. No, actually it proves that he doesn't know how to run a business, because he's never actually run a business that has achieved any degree of success. Now, again, as I mentioned the last time that we were on the air, which I'm not sure that it actually exists anywhere. That's another story for another day. But I will say that I did talk about the success of his television show, and there's no question the TV show did work. Maybe not for a lot of people, but for enough people who now believe that Donald Trump, after watching him for 10 years on the television, telling people, you're fired, there are enough people who believe that he is, in fact, some kind of a genius in business, that he makes businesses work, and that he summarily throws people off the set, and in an indication of his ability to hold himself over somebody else. And we're definitely going to talk about that in a moment. We'll get to that point, which is his latest game that he plays in the Oval Office, where he brings people in, pretends that he's going to have a nice meeting with them, and then he demeans them, berates them, tries to bait them into acting crazy, I guess so he can throw them out. But so far, the two main actors in all of this, both Zelensky and then the president of South Africa, they found the right method for avoiding a direct confrontation with the guy. But again, I say we're going to talk about that in a little bit, because there's a lot more to that, and I really want to talk about, number one, Donald's failure to understand the economic situation that he's placing this country in, and then secondly, the real results that seem to be just in front of us as far as what is happening to the country because of the crazy things that Donald seems to believe right now. And we all know that his major idea And it's sort of interesting because Donald has never had an idea in his life that he really put out in front of people. It's always been just calling people names. You know, when he was in the Oval Office the other day, he was calling ABC, NBC, and CBS fake news. But beyond that, he was saying that the people representing them in the White House on that day were losers and that they didn't know how to even be reporters anyway, and he didn't even know why they were there, and he wasn't going to take their questions anymore, all of that. And that's really what he has made his reputation on for all of these years. But it's also true that the TV was successful for one reason and one reason only, and it's because Mark Burnett produced the show. The show ran for 10 years. It made a lot of money. It made a lot of money for Mark Burnett. It made hundreds of millions of dollars for Donald, which it appears that he managed to shred throughout that time frame. So he didn't end up with anything. He didn't have anything in his pocket except for, like I say, a little lunch money. But he did make money. He did have revenue. You know, hundreds of millions of dollars came in from that program. Now, we know that he's bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars right now from the meme coins. We'll see where that dissipates into. He's gotten himself a $400 million jet plane, but it's going to cost $1 billion just to make the thing work at a level that would be sufficient to allow it to act as Air Force One. So the problem here is considerable for him. And I'm talking now in terms of his personal wealth. All in all, does he have $1 billion worth of net worth after the recent things that he's stolen? He might. He might be up to that. He's nowhere close to the $150 million. I'm sorry, $150 billion that Elon Musk has, because Elon Musk has a real company that produces real things and that brings in real dollars. And, you know, at one point he was worth maybe $300 billion. Now he's down to maybe half of that, with some hopes that maybe the market bounce will give him some additional breathing room. But he is backing out of government, he says. I guess on certain days he watches his stock and it sort of scares him. So he's sort of being scared out of the way a little bit. Now, that's the case with Elon, but as far as Donald's concerned, like I say, he might have $1 billion. He might still be slightly in the red. Hard to say. I know as far as he's concerned, he just looks out into the horizon and he sees great things happening for himself. He really does. You know, this is a man who has, for a long time, been quite delusional. And so, you know, it's not difficult for him to imagine that this is it. This is the time when he's really going to hit it. He's really going to make it big. And so I suppose that's what's cooking for him right now. And you know, that's his attitude. And you know, good for him. I mean, if it makes him feel good, and you know, he's got a little lunch money, and you know, he's got some people that you know, he is scared. And again, we're going to talk about some of the rest of this as we go through the rest of the show. But clearly, Donald has achieved something for himself. Got back into the presidency a second time, so that keeps him out of jail for the moment. He's got to stay in the job, though. That's the other problem he's got. If he leaves this job, he has to know. I know he's aware that once he walks out of this job, he's going to have people all over him for jail. I mean, jail is in his future. Will he have a net worth that's positive once he's in jail? Hard to say. He might. But again, this is a man who has had a long history of creating things that looked like they might work, and then, lo and behold, everything fell apart in front of him time and time again. And this is the life that Donald Trump has led, and it has caused him to be extremely dysfunctional. And amazingly, he is so confident walking into the White House and running our government in this same dysfunctional fashion. For him, it feels like just business as usual. But there are a lot of people in the United States of America who are not happy with this, who don't feel comfortable, who woke up this morning and heard that 14 million people could be losing their health care, and I guarantee you a lot of those people are upset. And, you know, again, many of those people are in the red states. They are the people that voted for Donald Trump, and they're losing their health care, their benefits, their hospitals, the hospitals that they go to in rural areas all over the United States. And, you know, Missouri is one of those red states where they have these hospitals that are operated partially based on Medicaid. And the reality of this is that they've got a problem. They are going to have to, that is, the voters for Trump are going to have to figure out what they're going to do in order to overcome the problems that have been put in their way by dear leader. So I'm not sure how they feel. I'm sure they feel upset, worried, concerned. I mean, anybody would. Not Donald. No, not Donald. Because this is the same chaos that he has lived in his entire life, and he considers this to be success. You know, he thinks this is actually working. He thinks this is the way you're supposed to live. But, you know, a lot of other people don't agree. Now, I do have on my screen in front of me my little brother on Facebook. He has asked me, are you taking calls? Well, the answer is no, Leslie, we're not taking calls. So, yeah, that's the answer to that. But if you write in on Facebook now, I am set up so that I can look right at it and I can see what you're saying and I can respond to you. So, you know, we've done this before and we can do that a little bit now too. So I'm happy to take those on. I understand some people in the first few shows sort of gave up because it's not there anymore. But there it is. Yeah, he's laughing, little brother. Okay, well, we know that works then, so that's all good. So, you know, we're very surely making progress here, and you've gotta love it because everything is in its own time. This is not about chaos. This is about getting things in working order. Donald's life is in complete chaos. And, you know, my brothers, I have to laugh. They love to tell me, which even this afternoon, I've got messages all over my telephone warning me that Donald Trump is not self-destructing, that he's in the White House and he's probably there for good. He's a very successful president, even though nobody likes what he's doing, but that he is the president and he's going to stay there and he's going to continue to be able to get the things that he wants because for some reason there are people who follow him And there are people who follow him, people who vote for him. I understand that. But they are running into a brick wall of financial, really, disaster on just right in front of us. It's not far away. We've already seen the markets cave in. They've bounced back a little bit. Some people would say not a bad recovery. Maybe about 60% of what was lost was recovered so far. That's, for some people, a little impressive. But, for other people, it amounts to what we call in the business a dead cat bounce. And I know it sounds bad, and it really upsets people who like cats. But, this is something that has been on Wall Street for as long as anybody can remember. And essentially what it says is that if you go to the top of the Empire State Building with a cat and you drop it off, it'll come down pretty fast. And then when it gets to the bottom, you'll get this little bounce. Just a little bit. Just a little bounce. And so that's what we're going through right now. We've got one of those bounces. And a lot of people do think maybe this is a dead cat bounce. On the other hand, there are statistics that we use in the markets that say that in general, people have begun to calm down. They feel a lot more comfortable. They believe that the worst of the Trump disaster is over, that it's sort of like the COVID situation back a few years ago, and that everything now is going to progress back to the upside like it always does for Donald Trump, they believe. That's how they see it. I think there's another way of looking at it, however, and I think it has to do with the fact that interest rates are rapidly on the rise. The 30-year bond has reached the highest level of the last 3 years, rising to almost 5.1% today. And that is a significant problem. The Wall Street Journal reported online today that mortgage rates, which you would expect, are following that 30-year bond to the upside as well. They're almost back to 7%, which is the highest that they were when the inflation peaked out a number of maybe 12, 14 months ago under the 14th most effective president in the history of the United States, and that would be Joe Biden, according to the 158 scholars who do the work on this all the time, and who also say that Donald Trump is the worst president in the history of the United States. But, give or take a little bit, essentially, you've got interest rates on the rise. And by the way, I like to talk about that one just for another second, because if you watched Donald on Meet the Press, and it was 2 weeks ago now, he looked right into Kristen Welker's eyes, and he said, interest rates are plunging. Really? I wonder what country that would be in. Because it's not in the United States, I can tell you that right now. The interest rates are up. And in fact, not only are they up, but there was a very important conversation today about a thing called the carry trade, which is something that involves the United States in a trade that can be done by certain kinds of investors using the Japanese yen, the United States dollar, and then United States bonds. And the problem is that it worked fine in the past, but the difference in the rates between the two countries, the United States and Japan, has shifted in a way that will not allow it to continue. And without that carry trade investment, the United States has got some real problems in being able to come up with dollars, and could be on the verge of a very significant crisis caused by this inability to continue the carry trade. So, I'm not going to go into a long discussion of it, but it's something that increases the amount of money flowing into the United States. Right now, it seems to be favoring the reverse, and that would be money flowing out of our country. I know for Donald, it doesn't matter because he just makes up a story. He just gets in front of cameras and says, the greatest economy in the world, the biggest flow of money into the United States, companies are investing in America. No, that's not true. In fact, it's so untrue that Donald actually got in a fight with Apple because Apple had said that they would take their business out of China and shift it into India and send their phones into the United States via India instead of China in order to avoid the 150% tariffs that were staring them in the eye. But now Donald's not happy with India, or at least not happy with Apple going through India. So anyway, problems, Donald. You're going to have to figure out what to do. But I think I know what to do, and that is I am going to take you to the St. Louis Suit Company to buy some clothes. And I think if you look on the screen in front of you, you will notice that I'm wearing a suit as I always do, and a very colorful tie, one that I happen to like a lot. And the reason I like it so much is because there's enough color in it so I can really at least get some idea of the color, because you have to understand I'm colorblind. There's not much I can do about that. But the St. Louis Suit Company takes care of me. I go in there, I buy suits, I buy ties, I buy shirts, I buy everything there, and they tell me this is the way you want to wear everything. Put these things together, you wear these colors together, you will be happy. St. Louis Suit Company, they have suits. The ties are incredible, but it's not just that they look great, which they do, but they cost $5. I know it's ridiculous, and I talk to them all the time about it, and I'm talking about 30 years they've been doing this, and the ties are still $5. So, the suits are inexpensive, great quality, but the bottom line is you can't beat the price on these ties anywhere in the United States of America. Donald Trump sold ties for a while. I'm sorry, he went bankrupt, but at any rate, the St. Louis Suit Company's been there for 30 years, and we're very proud to be in business with them. Okay, let me tell you about Jewels on Hampton, 4507 Hampton, and the jewelry is outstanding. There's no question about that. I mean, it is a jewelry store. That is a fact. But it's more than a jewelry store. You can go in and you can buy jewelry from them. You can buy and sell gold. They'll trade with you in the gold market. They treat you fair. I mean, they do. The price of gold has gone to $3,000. So, yeah, the price is way up. But, as far as fair, Al at Jewels on Hampton is going to treat you fair. I said 4507. It's actually 4506 Hampton, but, who's counting? It's all the same place. It's a great store. They'll help you to design your jewelry. They'll design jewelry for you. Al's just an excellent guy. He really does good business. People just like to go in and talk to him, and that's a fact. I go in there, and I can't get out just because it's fun, nice to talk to him. He's just a good person, and I'll even tell you more about that in a minute. But at any rate, you can't go wrong at Jewels on Hampton. You'll love their coins and jewelry. They pay high prices for gold and diamonds. It shows it on the screen, so it must be right. And I promise you, Al and his son, AJ, they're just really good people. and you'll enjoy doing business with them. And let me also say that the next person I'm going to tell you about really is important in terms of the fun that it is to talk to Al, because Al and I go to one of our other advertisers, and that's Telena's in Creve Coeur at 141 and Olive. And we go there and we talk there. So we're not even at the jewelry store, and we go hang out and we talk about all kinds of things. I can tell you there's a lot of good, fun political talk out at Telena's. Mehdi is my good friend. He's the owner. And we just, not only do we have fun there, but we bring lots of people in as well. And we just have fun there. It's a good place. But now, don't get me wrong, it's not about just fun. It's about great food. People who know Telena's know that while my friends at the suit company have been in business for 30 years, Telena's, they've been there for 40 years. It's just something about these companies that stay in business for 30 and 40 years. They sort of give you a hint that they really know what they're doing, as opposed to some other companies like people who run casinos that can't even stay in business for a year and end up in bankruptcy court. Oh, well, it's just the way it is. But you'll love Telena's. You'll love their pizza, of course. But for me, the best is the spaghetti and meatballs. I promise you, you go to Telena's, you try their spaghetti and meatballs, you will love it. It's the best. I promise you it is. So, 141 and Olive, over by Woods Mill. There's a Deerberg's over there. It's the same place they've been for 40 years. I'll tell you right now. You'll love Telena's. Now, there's other places to eat too. And I have a great friend, and his name is Ben, and he's out at Wenty's. And Wenty's is out in Chesterfield Valley, 18,000 Chesterfield Airport Road. And I can tell you right now, everybody loves their wings. They say that the hot wings at Wenty's are the best that you're going to get anywhere. That's what they say. You know, maybe they're telling the truth this time. You know, Donald's people. You know, he always says, the people say. But no, in this case, the people do say it. And I'm telling you, there's no question the wings are great. Now, for me, again, I don't always, go the way of the crowd. The crowd loves the wings. I love the baby back ribs, and I eat those ribs, and I'll tell you, they are good. Now, I know for a fact because I eat those ribs. Don't eat the wings, so you're going to have to ask someone else. And that seems to be the favorite, the wings at Wenty's. But the ribs, and I love their onion rings too. They're great. Now, they also have hamburgers and cheeseburgers and salads, and I love their iced tea. You know, Wenty's is another great place. And if you go there, you probably run into Ben, who just runs this restaurant in the best way possible. But at any rate, this one is in Chesterfield Valley. All great friends of mine. They don't all agree with me, I can tell you that. They don't all agree with what I say. But they do love to support the broadcasting, and we appreciate it. And that, of course, again, is Wenty's in Chesterfield Valley. Okay, so let me switch over here, get away from all the exciting positive news that I love to give people about the economy and the direction it's likely to go. And let's talk instead about how Donald, for the second time now in just a matter of months, berated a leader of a foreign country in the White House. This seems to be something that he enjoys doing. So just a couple of days ago, he had the president of South Africa in the Oval Office. And, it's pretty amazing, actually. Brought up a big screen and started showing this guy pictures of crosses on the road, which Donald claims are all dead white people, which he says these white people are all being killed by black people in South Africa, because he says South Africa is on a program of genocide against whites. And that's why Donald has invited all of these South African white people into the United States, where he wants to save them. He wants to be sure that these people who are refugees from genocide can come to the United States and live successful and happy lives away from the danger in South Africa that all those dark people are causing over there. Now, of course, every news outlet in the United States is pointing out that this information about genocide against white people in South Africa turns out not to be true. Gee, what a surprise. Donald lied. But you know, the president of South Africa was extremely friendly and thoughtful, and he was very diplomatic about it. He explained to Donald that that's not happening, that there is crime in South Africa, that there are some white people who die there. But he also pointed out that it's black people who are dying in much larger numbers than anybody else, and that they definitely have a challenge in terms of bringing the crime levels down. He wants to see that happen. The United States has crime. Other countries around the world have crime. There's no question about that. Nobody's for it. But unfortunately, what Donald is doing is just, again, beyond the pale, because instead of having a discussion about, say, a crime problem, you know, he brings in a person into the Oval Office, puts them under attack, comes up with stories that are completely debunked by every major news agency in the world. But it doesn't stop Donald. He just keeps running the picture of the crosses on the side of the road and talking about the genocide and what we're doing to save white people here in the United States. And you know, anybody that doesn't realize that this is specifically being done as a way of telling white people in America, and especially white supremacists in our country, saying to them, look, I am your guy. You know, he told them back a number of years ago to stand by, that, you know, everything was going to be okay back in Charlottesville. You know, we know the story. You know, he told us that there were fine people on both sides, even though one of the sides was filled with Nazis. And, you know, now we understand even a little better what he meant by that, because we know for a fact that Donald and Elon Musk and others in the administration have supported neo-Nazi governments, or neo-Nazi parties around the world that have not achieved the ability of becoming governments. They failed in Germany. They failed in Poland. They failed last week in Romania. And listen, in came Donald and J.D. Vance, met with the neo-Nazis in Germany, told the German people, vote for the AfD, this neo-Nazi group. They are the people for you. Those people were actually coming up in the polls until Donald started this, and then immediately right back down where neo-Nazis belong. Again, in Romania, he tried it just a few days ago. It failed. He pushed the conservatives in Britain. They failed. He pushed the conservatives in Canada. They failed. I mean, everywhere that Donald goes, this doesn't work. It only works in one place. so happens, it seems to be, it's the place where people have watched him on television doing this crazy show that makes him look like he's somebody, that makes him look like a success, that makes him look like he can be very impressive in business. The problem is what you look like on television may not be what you are in real life. You know, I talk all the time about Marcus Welby and Robert Young. You know, Robert Young is gone, of course, but when he was here, you wouldn't have wanted Robert Young to take out your appendix. He played a doctor on television. It didn't mean that he was a doctor, and it didn't mean he could take out your appendix. But see, in the case of Donald, that's what he's selling. You watch him on TV, you listen to him make up stories, and then he comes to you in real life, and he just keeps on lying to you. Now, it's on television, it's not a lie. But in real life, when he tells you that he's a genius, well, we know the results. They're not good. But, you know, here it is. We're looking at a number of problems that are faced in this country right now, things that we have to deal with as a result of Donald. You know, from the outset, we talked about the people losing their health insurance due to Medicaid. There's also cuts in Medicare, which Donald promised he wouldn't do, and they are not being talked about too much. But there are Medicare cuts that have been described and discussed by, you know, experts in Medicare, experts in evaluating government programs, and there are some problems here that are being caused for Medicare as well. So far, people are getting their Social Security checks, but he has wiped out thousands of employees in the Social Security Administration, and the problem is that if you need help, you may not find that there's as much help as you were used to getting. And you might find yourself in trouble, and a lot of people have suggested that the real theory that Donald has is that if he can sort of destroy the inner structure of some of these agencies by firing all their people, that he can then turn around and say, well, you know what? We told you in the beginning these things don't work. They're a Ponzi scheme. You know, all those stories that he likes to tell, and then, well, he thinks he's going to be able to sell this to the American people. I doubt it. Here's one that he wants to sell to the American people. This is today. He, as many people know now, he has been telling the universities, and especially Harvard, that they're not going to get any of their money for the various programs that they're operating. And today, he came up with a good one for Harvard. He told Harvard, you know, if you don't allow us to take a look at all your records of how you're teaching people and, you know, what you're doing here, because, you know, there's this theory that Donald has that he knows better than Harvard and Columbia and everybody else. But the bottom line is they're threatening to take away their tax exemption, their tax exempt status. He's coming after these people in a way that is, he's not hiding it. He's not going behind, you know, a curtain somewhere and whispering this to the head of Harvard. I mean, he's looking them right in the eye, and he's telling them, you know, we're going to shut everything down. In fact, they have said, look, we're not even going to allow your foreign students to attend Harvard anymore. He says, that's right now. We're not only going to take away your tax deduction status, we're not just going to take away all the money from your various programs that are essential for, you know, studying cancer and Alzheimer's and some of these other, you know, main diseases that we want to get rid of in the United States and around the world. But you know what? You've got maybe a quarter or a third of your students that come from foreign countries. Well, guess what? They can't go anymore. We're not going to let them. We're going to throw them out of the United States. We're going to throw them out of Harvard. That's the end of your foreign students at Harvard University. I mean, that's this afternoon. So Donald comes up with ideas. Oh, he does. Brilliant ideas for creating chaos in America. Brilliant ideas for tearing down things that really have been essential in creating the greatness that truly has existed within this country. I mean, there are some of us who have looked at things in the past and pointed here and there and said, not so great, not so impressive, not doing a great job. We're really concerned about some of the things that America has done, put us on the wrong side of some wars and things like that. But, never has it been like this. Never have we seen a situation where the President of the United States has attempted to demolish some of the most important institutional structures that have existed in this country. And I don't think anybody would deny, except for some very crazed people on the Donald Trump side of all of this, but very few people would deny that our college structure is one of the greatest things about the United States. People from all over the world want to come here and go to our great schools. They want to study everything that we teach. They want to study engineering. They want to study AI. They want to study medical research. They want everything that the United States has to offer when it comes to this area of research. Donald Trump is trying to tear it down, and he's only been in office the second time for 3-4 months now. I mean, 3.5 months. And he is doing everything he can to wreck this place. Now, I've said many times, I think he's really in business with Vladimir Putin. And you know that what he's doing right now, it really serves the purposes of Vladimir Putin. Now, Xi Jinping has got to be happy with this too, but there's no evidence that Donald and Xi Jinping are in business together, but there is tremendous evidence that Donald and Vladimir Putin may be. The United States has a $30 trillion GDP. Russia has $2 trillion, and just so you understand, that is smaller than the state of Texas. It is half the size, in fact, even less than half the size of the state of California. Vladimir Putin's got a problem. And one way he could overcome that problem is by owning Donald Trump. And so while people talk about, the different ways that Donald might actually be trying to work with Putin and some of the misconceptions that Donald might have about Putin, see, I don't buy that. I think he understands exactly what he's got. And whatever it is that Putin has over him, now that I don't know. I wonder if we'll ever find out. I think we probably will. It's very hard to hide these kinds of so-called secrets. But I will say that I do believe that there is some reason that Donald Trump favors Russia over every country in the world. As an example, he put tariffs on everybody except Russia. No tariffs on Russia. Why not? I mean, he's gone crazy on everybody else, but not Russia. Now, there's something going on here, and clearly, Donald is wrecking the country. That is a fact. The question is he doing it intentionally? And if he is he doing it intentionally because he just doesn't like us? Or is he doing it intentionally because he's got a deal with Vladimir Putin? See, I wouldn't give up on that idea. I've read the Mueller report. You know, back in the day, the Trump administration said that the Mueller report actually exonerated Donald Trump. But if you read the Mueller report, what it says is that we cannot exonerate Donald Trump based on what we have found. And they describe 144 meetings between the Trump people and the Russians that were clearly illegal meetings. Why? I don't know. But now, as you look around and you find Donald Trump attempting to wreck America, he's doing a great job. I think you've got to ask the question, who's he doing this for? Is he doing it for himself? Is he doing it for his pleasure? Or is there something else going on here? I don't say we're going to solve this problem in a day, but I say that it's something to look at because the man is wrecking this country. And, you know, we've just talked about 4 or 5 things tonight on his wrecking ball agenda. And I unfortunately believe that any day I walk in here, I'll have new things to talk about in that regard, because there's just no question that the direction that we're going is not a good one. It is not helpful at all. But we've got some people pushing back. Certainly the Democrats are trying to figure out a way to push back. Bernie and AOC are extremely capable when it comes to pushing back. Others are trying to find their voices, and while I think they will, I think the one thing that they're going to have to remember is if you don't say it the way it is, people are going to understand that you're hesitating. They're going to understand that you're hiding something, and they're not going to know necessarily what it is that you're hiding, but they'll realize that there's something that's being hidden, and they won't like it. So, for example, instead of saying that we agree with Donald that you've got to shut down the border, but we want to do it more humanely. I mean, why don't we admit that we've got a statue out in New York Harbor that invites these people into our country because we want them, because we value these people who migrate from other countries with the idea that they come to the United States where they can live a better life and where they can help to lift this country up like others have in the past. Tell the truth. If you insist on trying to be a little like Donald but not as mean, I promise that won't work. You've got to tell the truth. We do want people from other countries. We do value people that are different than the vast majority of people in America today. That it would not be a bad thing if in 50 years we found that other groups were in the majority and that white people were not. And I know that's a fear that this country has, but it is a foolish fear because honestly, the people coming here are not trying to get us. They're just trying to get a better life for themselves. The only person who's trying to get us is Donald J. Trump. And we'll be back with more in this series on Tuesday next week. Monday's the holiday. Enjoy your holiday. Take a rest. Watch the TV shows. Watch what this man is doing to tear down the country. Don't hide from it. We need to know. We need to know because we need to fight back. My name is Mark Kasen. This is Showdown. Good night.